So I said, Your Honor, I was acting no less reasonably than anyone else conducting business on that beautiful spring afternoon. I just had a visible, unpopular opinion with the local authorities, which in Canada is protected.
Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News, bringing you a story that has been culminating over the last 2.5 years, the results from tyrannical, unjustified, government-imposed COVID-19 related supposed health protection measures, and a self-represented man of conviction who is determined to fight them. It's about a gentleman named Graham Walker who lives north of Cobourg, Ontario. He and I first met in 2020 before my Rebel News reporting days, when we both began standing out front of Northumberland County's largest town centre, the Cobourg Town Hall, also known as Victoria Hall, to oppose the harsh suppressive measures being implemented by all levels of government in response to what was being called then a novel pathogen. The town square is a highly historic and traditional place of protest, and so it served as a protest hub during the COVID hysteria beginning in April of 2020, drawing both small and large groups. A dedicated few continued the protests through the years of rolling restrictions, and Graham Walker was often one of them. Despite harshly imposed suppressive public health measures, Mr. Walker and like-minded individuals persisted in exercising what they thought was a democratic right to have and be able to voice an unpopular or contrarian opinion in wake of a tyrannical majority. For this crime, he received 4 tickets total, all for peacefully standing in front of Cobourg's iconic Victoria Hall. 2 of those tickets were withdrawn based on a technicality when the ticketing officer retired, and another when the Cobourg police were unable to provide video evidence that they claimed to have. While the prosecution continues to offer Walker various plea deals and bargains, he kindly declines each time. Earlier this week, Walker had his final hearing for his 3rd ticket, which has far surpassed the time laid out to receive a fair and timely trial. Not only that, but it took the Crown nearly 2.5 years to figure out what law exactly he was being charged under. And then I had the opportunity to catch up with Walker right after this hearing at the courthouse. Have a listen.
The tickets were written out under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. It didn't say anything about the stay-at-home order, but 2 years and 2 months later, they said it had to do with the stay-at-home order.
And that seemed to be the basis of your defense here. If you could brief the audience on what you're standing on in your defense and how you refuted the prosecution's claims.
So I started out pointing out that there's just basically an error on the face of the ticket, that they're charging me under something that didn't relate to anything on the stay-at-home order. The actual section had to do with some penalties, so there was no offense listed on the ticket. Then I went ahead with refuting the stay-at-home order, that I had legitimate reasons to be out. Every time I went out, I was doing multiple things. I was shopping, I was going to the bank, I was also protesting. I was clear about that, so which isn't an exemption, but we're in Canada, not China. So.
Indeed, we are in Canada, not China, and we're supposed to have chartered rights, but the prosecution said that Section 1 of the Charter, that's the Reasonable Limits Clause, was in fact justified throughout the super deadly pandemic. And according to them, it included the stay-at-home order implemented in the first quarter of 2021 when Walker was ticketed. But Walker wasn't doing anything different than many other people out that fateful day on May 8th when he was fined.
Especially that day, because that was the first weekend of the Cobourg Farm Market. Beautiful sunny day. The streets were actually literally packed with people walking around. And I was walking around. I had my cart that had my druthers newspapers I was passing out. I had signs and a flag, but I wasn't interfering, and I wasn't in any way harming anybody.
Something I really appreciated from the justice, he mentioned how respectful you've been throughout this process, succinct in your defense. Can you elaborate a little bit on how self-representing has looked like for you here throughout this process? Because it's been long and drawn out, and it's still not over yet.
Yeah, this is my 5th appearance today. I received 4 tickets overall through the stay-at-home order, so never been to court before in my life. So it's been a real good learning experience. I have no legal training. I'm a truck driver and a farmer. But I've really enjoyed learning. I've had my nose in it. Sometimes I'm dreaming about the stuff. So
if you could summarize the amount of time and the hours spent dedicated not only in the courtroom itself, but researching and preparing your case, what would you say that looks like?
Like I'm listening to podcasts on this subject because there's groups out there that are working on this all over the place, right? I heard there's over like 1.5 million lockdown type fines across Canada. So there's a lot of people working on it. So I'm listening to podcasts throughout the day. So it's hundreds of hours, probably. Wow. Dozens of hundreds of research and working on it. Yeah.
If you have the letter that you read, just to summarize your case to the justice today, can you share with us those final few sentences? Because I thought those were extremely powerful and well done.
So I said, Your Honor, I was acting no less reasonably than anyone else conducting business on that beautiful spring afternoon. I just had a visible, unpopular opinion with local authorities, which in Canada is protected.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the justice reserved his decision. You'll be back here February 23rd to receive his decision, but you still have another pending case and you had a couple more tickets. So if you could just summarize what the next steps are here and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, so I had 4 tickets. 2 have been withdrawn. We've started 2 trials. So my next continuation for the next trial is in December. And then I imagine he's going to do the decision for both in February 23rd.
And this is all, again, relating to protesting out front of City Hall during the supposed prime pandemic time and the stay-at-home orders.
Very peaceful protests the whole time. There was never, in the 2 years that we protested in front of Victoria Hall, never an issue. We were always a peaceful protest. And we just continued on through the stay-at-home order.
And Phoenix, I'll just put you on the spot for a moment. Your wife, how has this affected you, your family? What can you say about this whole process that Graham's went through?
I'm just so proud of him. Like we went into this not really the whole 2 years. We went into this, we were organic farmers. We didn't fight. We were just wanting to live our life. We homeschooled all of our kids. We just lived both of us went into this with our head down and said, we're going to do this. And he is seeing this through and I couldn't be more proud of him.
While the Canadian Civil Liberties Association says that people in a democratic society have the right to protest and that restricting that fundamental right silences the voices of those in our society who may have limited means for making their views known. That is exactly what happened throughout the COVID hysteria. Town council meetings and other were pivoted virtual and or shuttered completely, and elected officials responded to emails expressing concern and asking valid questions with received and noted, noted and received over and over again, if they even responded at all. We were forbidden from gathering with anyone outside of our immediate households, told to stand 6 feet apart. Outdoor gatherings were restricted completely or severely limited to 5 people, as though outdoor viral spread was a scientific fact instead of the voodoo quackery that it actually is. And yet we were also told that indoors was the place where you were most at risk of viral contact. And so Northumberland County illogically and nonsensically closed hundreds of acres of outdoor walking trails spanning the entire Northumberland forest. The town of Cobourg followed suit by closing one of Ontario's most beautiful and well-known beaches, the Cobourg Beach, a closure that would span throughout 2021 too, without a bylaw or any legal authority to support the unevidence-based and unjustified public access restriction. Will justice and the law prevail for Walker, who will be vindicated from this crime of peaceful protest in wake of grotesque overreach, the destruction of democratic due process, police just following orders, and a largely fearful yet tyrannical majority? Only time will tell. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Stories like this are exactly why upholding freedom of expression is so important in a functioning, healthy democracy, and part of why we launched a campaign at stopthecensorship.ca. At that website, you can chip in to support our journalistic efforts if you're able to, and sign our petition if you would like to see the censorious Trudeau regime withdraw their plans to control social media. Find out more and support us, if you can, at stopthecensorship.ca. www.ecc.ca.